Every day, we are faced with hundreds of choices, some small, like what to eat for breakfast, others life-altering, like who we trust, where we work, or how we respond when life gets tough. But here's a simple truth. Every choice we make carries a consequence. There's no escaping it. The beautiful, and sometimes frightening, thing about life, we often like to think that circumstances shape us, that we are the product of our environment. But while environment influences us, it is our response, our choices, that define us. We choose how we react when things go wrong. We choose whether we grow from our failures or stay stuck in fear. We choose to take responsibility or to blame others. And over time, these little choices become patterns. These patterns shape our habits. Our habits shape our identity. And eventually, our identity shapes our destiny. The most successful, fulfilled people don't always make perfect choices, but they take ownership of the consequences. They learn, they grow, they adjust, and they do it over and over again. So the real question is not what will happen to me. The real question is what will I do with what happens to me? Because in the end, your life is a reflection of your choices. Not your luck, not your circumstances, not your excuses, your choices, your consequences, your life. Every single day, we are making choices, many of them without even realizing it, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep. Our lives are built on a constant stream of decisions. Some are automatic, like brushing our teeth or checking our phones. Others carry more weight, like how we speak to others, how we respond to conflict, or whether we take a risk or play it safe. But what often goes unnoticed is that none of these choices exists in isolation. They all carry consequences, visible or invisible, immediate or delayed. We tend to associate consequences with bad outcomes. But in truth, consequences are neutral. They are simply the natural result of a decision. If you plant a seed and water it, the consequence is growth. If you ignore it, it withers. Consequences aren't about punishment or reward. They're about cause and effect. The challenge is, we often want to make decisions without facing the outcomes that come with them. We want the freedom to choose, but not the responsibility that follows. What complicates things further is that not all consequences show up right away. Some are immediate. You eat too much and feel sluggish. Others unfold slowly. You skip exercise for years and later face health issues. This delayed feedback loop is one of the reasons people ignore consequences until they become too large to avoid. Just because the result doesn't show up today doesn't mean it isn't on its way. Every small choice is like a brick being laid. You may not notice the wall forming until it's towering over you. Even our passive choices, the things we choose not to do, have consequences. Choosing not to speak up, not to forgive, not to take action, not to change. Those decisions carry outcomes just as powerful as the actions we take. There is no such thing as neutral ground. Inaction is still a decision, and silence is still a message. Whether you choose to move forward or stand still, time will move, and consequences will arrive. What makes consequences so impactful is that they shape our habits, our relationships, and ultimately, our future. Every time you choose to show up early, stay disciplined, or listen instead of react, you're reinforcing a positive pattern. Likewise, every time you avoid responsibility, procrastinate, or act in anger, you're carving a path that leads to predictable results. Our lives are the sum total of these repeated choices and their effects. Not just the big, dramatic decisions, but the daily, quiet ones too. There's also a ripple effect. Our choices don't just affect us. A moment of kindness can inspire someone for years. A careless word can damage a relationship forever. The way you lead, speak, love, and respond carries weight beyond yourself. We don't live in a vacuum. Others feel the consequences of our choices just as we feel theirs. This interconnectedness raises the stakes. It reminds us that we are not only choosing for ourselves, we are influencing outcomes in the lives around us, often without even knowing it. Many people hope they can make a shortcut decision and avoid the cost. But the truth is, you can never escape the consequence. You can only delay it or redirect it. You might avoid dealing with conflict today, but it will likely resurface later, bigger and messier. You might choose to lie to get ahead, but that trust erosion has its own price. When we treat decisions lightly, we often pay heavily. The clarity comes when we begin to connect the dots between choice and outcome, between today's habits and tomorrow's results. Once we stop separating our actions from their consequences, we begin to see the power we hold in shaping our reality. We realize that each decision, no matter how small, is a seed, and we are always planting. The question is, what are we growing? Fate doesn't always ask for our permission before it happens. Circumstances arise without warning: an illness, a job loss, a betrayal, a global crisis. We don't get to choose many of the things that happen to us. But what we do get to choose every single time is how we respond. That is where our true power lives. It's not in controlling the chaos around us, it's in mastering the calm within us. When we believe that we are at the mercy of our environment, we give up our agency. We surrender our power to the external. But in reality, it is not the circumstance that defines us, it's our response to it. Two people can go through the exact same hardship, yet emerge with entirely different outcomes. It's our response to it. Two people can go through the exact same hardship, yet emerge with entirely different outcomes. One becomes bitter, the other becomes wise. The event was the same. The difference was in the choice they made in how to respond. Responsibility doesn't mean blame. It doesn't mean we caused the hardship. It means that we own what we do next. It's about refusing to live in victimhood, not because the pain wasn't real, but because we are more than what happened to us. Responsibility is reclaiming authorship of our story, even when part of it was written without our consent. There's a mental shift that occurs when we stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what will I do now? That shift moves us from reaction to intention. It turns us from bystanders into participants, from passive sufferers into active shapers of our experience. And that shift can happen at any moment, in any situation, no matter how unjust, difficult, or overwhelming it may feel. People often underestimate how much control they still have. You may not control a job layoff, but you control your attitude and your next steps. You may not control how someone treats you, but you control whether you let it define your worth. You may not control a loss, but you control how you process it, what you choose to carry forward, and what you choose to leave behind. Our response is always ours, and that's a form of freedom no one can take. Choosing our response doesn't mean suppressing emotions or pretending things are fine when they aren't. It means giving ourselves permission to feel while also choosing not to be ruled by those feelings. It means we recognize pain, but we don't hand it the keys to our future. It means we face fear, but we don't let it dictate our direction. This level of responsibility is a practice, one that gets stronger the more we use it. This is another way that we make choices. It's one that gets stronger the more we use it. Responsibility also brings clarity. When we accept that we are responsible for our response, we start to ask better questions. What can I learn from this? What part of this is in my control? What kind of person do I want to be in the middle of this chaos? These questions lead to growth. They lead to accountability. They lead to ownership. Not of the problem, but of the power to rise above it. When we focus solely on our circumstances, we wait for life to change before we do. But when we focus on our response, we realize that change begins within. That's where transformation starts. Not when things get easier, but when we get stronger. And the path to that strength is paved with 1,000 choices, each one reminding us that our response is not only a reflection of who we are, but a preview of who we're becoming. We often look at successful people, fulfilled relationships, or strong character, and assume those outcomes came from one massive, life-changing decision. But the truth is, the most meaningful outcomes in life are rarely the result of a single moment. They are shaped by hundreds of small, almost invisible choices made consistently over time. Who we become is not written in grand gestures. It's etched in the quiet, repeated decisions we make when no one is watching. Consider the simple decision to wake up early and read for 20 minutes each day. On any given morning, that choice might seem insignificant, but over a year, that becomes more than 120 hours of personal growth. Likewise, choosing to be kind when irritated, to save when tempted to spend, to listen instead of interrupt. These are all decisions that, by themselves, may feel minor, but compounded over time, they shape your mindset, your habits, and eventually your identity. The law of compounding doesn't just apply to money, it applies to character, discipline, relationships, and wisdom. Every repeated action adds a layer to the foundation of who we are, and because the results don't show up right away, we're often tempted to underestimate their power. That's why bad habits are so seductive. They feel harmless in the moment, and good habits often feel unrewarding at first, but both are investments with interest that always comes due. What you do today doesn't just affect today. It echoes into tomorrow and the next day and the next. Skipping one workout doesn't change your body, but skipping one becomes two, and soon it becomes a mindset. Likewise, one act of courage may not transform your life overnight, but courage exercised daily strengthens resilience. It's not about perfection, it's about direction. Every small decision is a step down a path, whether you realize it or not. There's a myth that change has to be dramatic to be effective, but real transformation is usually quiet, steady, and slow. It's the choice to make your bed when you feel lazy, to say thank you when you're in a rush, to return the shopping cart. These actions seem small, but they train your brain to operate with discipline, responsibility, and intentionality. Over time, these actions shift your self-perception. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, who takes pride in the details, who shows up. The beauty of small decisions is that they're manageable. You don't have to overhaul your life in a day. You don't need to be extraordinary. You need to be consistent. Just like a single drop of water won't crack a stone, but continuous drops will carve through it, your repeated daily actions shape the person you are becoming, slowly but unavoidably. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally intend. The challenge is that the results of our small decisions are often delayed. That delay is where most people give up. They make good choices for a week and see no change, so they stop. But what they don't realize is that results lag behind effort. Just because you don't see the reward today doesn't mean your investment isn't growing beneath the surface. That's how compound growth works. It's invisible until suddenly it's undeniable. Whether you're aware of it or not, your daily choices are shaping you. They are shaping your confidence, your patience, your skill, your resilience. The future version of you is being built today, not with one grand gesture, but with 1,000 small ones. And every day you are casting votes for the type of person you will eventually become. Blame is one of the easiest reactions to discomfort. When something goes wrong, when we feel pain, frustration, embarrassment, or failure, our first instinct is often to look outward. We search for a reason, and most often, a person to pin it on. Blame is one of the easiest reactions to discomfort. When we feel pain, frustration, embarrassment, or failure, our first instinct is often to pin it on. This response feels natural. It protects our ego. It helps us make sense of why things didn't go the way we hoped. But the problem is, blame may offer temporary relief, but it guarantees long-term stagnation. When we blame others, we give away our power. We tell ourselves the situation was out of our hands, that someone else was responsible for the outcome, and therefore change is not up to us. That mindset leaves us stuck. It robs us of the one thing that can create progress: ownership. As long as we're focused on what someone else did wrong, we ignore the role we could play in making things better. We lose the opportunity to grow, to adjust, or to move forward with intention. Growth requires honesty. It requires us to ask difficult questions of ourselves, like, what part did I play? What did I overlook? What can I learn from this? It requires us to ask difficult questions of ourselves, like, what part did I play? What did I overlook? What can I learn from this? Those questions don't feel good in the short term, but they are the gateway to transformation. Blame is easy. Growth is hard. But only one leads to wisdom. And only one puts you in control of your own development. Owning your consequences doesn't mean you're always at fault. Sometimes people do hurt us. Sometimes life really is unfair. But even in those situations, we still have a choice. We can either become victims of the situation or stewards of our response. Taking ownership doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful, because it means you refuse to wait for someone else to change before you begin to grow. There is a quiet strength in people who take responsibility. They don't play the blame game. They don't make excuses. They don't deflect when things go wrong. Instead, they lean into the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. They understand that the only way to improve is to examine themselves. These individuals rise faster, lead better, and learn quicker, not because they never make mistakes, but because they learn from them instead of avoiding them. Blame is seductive because it lets us preserve our image. It protects our pride. But in doing so, it limits our potential. It says, I'm fine, the problem is out there. And as long as the problem is out there, the solution will never be in our hands. Progress begins the moment we stop pointing fingers and start looking inward. That's when change becomes possible. That's when maturity begins to take root. In any relationship, whether professional, personal, or with ourselves, growth is accelerated when we stop assigning fault and start seeking responsibility. A team that owns its failures improves faster. A partner who takes responsibility builds trust. A leader who admits mistakes earns respect. Ownership is not about guilt, it's about growth. It's not about punishment, it's about potential. We all face moments where the temptation to blame is strong. It's a natural human impulse. But each time we resist it, each time we choose ownership instead, we step closer to the person we're capable of becoming. Because it is in that choice, and that choice alone, where true change begins. There's a dangerous illusion that many people quietly live under, the belief that they are stuck. Stuck in a job they don't love, stuck in a relationship that drains them, stuck in a mindset shaped by old wounds. They feel trapped by their past, by their mistakes, by their circumstances. But this sense of being stuck is rarely a reflection of reality. More often, it is the result of fearing the power of change. Because change always begins with a decision. The truth is, no matter how far you've drifted, no matter how long you've delayed, you are one decision away from a completely different direction. That decision might be small, making a phone call, saying no, starting a new habit, or it might be massive, walking away from what's familiar, committing to healing, or stepping into the unknown. But one choice, made with clarity and courage, can break the illusion of being stuck and open a door to transformation. Being stuck is not a physical state, it's a mental one. It's when we tell ourselves, I have no choice, when in reality, we are avoiding the harder choice. Often we remain in uncomfortable places not because we are powerless, but because we are afraid. Afraid of discomfort, of judgment, of failure. But nothing keeps us more stagnant than the lie that says, this is just how things are. That lie is not a wall, it's a mindset. And mindsets can be rewritten. Every meaningful change starts with the willingness to take one step. Not a perfect step, not a guaranteed step, but a chosen step. One decision can lead to a new habit. One habit can lead to a new mindset. A new mindset can shape a new lifestyle. That's the chain reaction of transformation. But it starts with one deliberate act of courage. We don't have to change everything at once. We just have to say yes to the next right decision. People often wait for the perfect moment to change, as if clarity will come before commitment. But clarity often follows commitment. It's in the process of movement that new perspectives are revealed. The decision to begin, whether it's to leave, to start, to speak up, or to let go, puts things in motion. The feeling of being stuck usually ends the moment action begins. Because motion, even if imperfect, is proof that we are not powerless. Even in the darkest chapters of life, we are never without choice. We may not control the pain, but we can choose how we interpret it. We may not control other people, but we can choose what we tolerate. We may not control the past, but we can choose how we carry it. These decisions may not fix everything overnight, but they begin to shift the story. They remind us that agency was never taken from us. We just forgot we had it. There is immense power in realizing that your next decision could be the one that changes everything. It might not lead to a perfect outcome, but it will lead to a different one. And different is the first step to better. Many of the most extraordinary lives were built by ordinary people who simply refused to stay where they were. They decided to try, to hope, to believe again. One decision changed their story, and it can change yours too. We are not trees. We are not rooted in one place forever. We are dynamic, evolving beings with the capacity to choose, to move, to grow. So even when you feel stuck, even when you can't see the whole road ahead, remember this: you don't need the full map to take the first step. You only need the courage to decide. And that decision has the power to shift the entire direction of your life. So in the end, it's simple. Your life is shaped not by what happens to you, but by what you choose to do about it. Every moment, every decision, every response, it's all part of the story you're writing. You can blame, or you can grow. You can wait, or you can act. But always remember this: you hold the pen. Choose wisely, because your choices shape your consequences, and your consequences shape your life.